All right. It looks like the lockdown is going to continue even after we have 1 week left in Lagos, Ogun, and Abuja, and lots of people are going to be working from home, okay, continuously, meaning that, and that shows that there's a disruption, you know, in the employer-employee relationship. There's a disruption in the employment sphere. And this is why we're going to be speaking with a tech expert, Ope Olaniran, via Skype. We want to be looking at how Nigeria is prepared on the issue of working from home. We see in developed nations, many companies have put in place measures to ensure that the workers are able to work from home and deliver, you know, on responsibilities like they do when they are at work. Opeyemi, good morning and welcome to Today's Business. I hope we do have you here. Good morning, Opeyemi.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
How are you doing this morning?
I'm very well. And yourself?
All right. If you heard when I was dishing out an information earlier on about the 36 states governors coming together to say there will be no interstate movement. Now it means you are going to be in your house and you are going to be working from home. Now let's start with you. How has your experience been working from home, you know, for the past 3 weeks?
Yeah, so it's new normal, as you know, that's supposed to be the latest slang now, which talks about having to adapt to this situation that we've all found ourselves in. It hasn't been entirely easy, but you know, like all humans, we have to adapt very quickly to situations. So I have basically been working for the last 3 weeks from the house. Taking conference calls, having all kinds of different meetings across, you know, the world and all the other interactions that we're having. Even what's more interesting is, you know, the kids have also started school as well, and that's also online. So we're all literally competing for space, you know, to get our meetings done and not get into each other's way as well. So, you know, interesting times. You know, but like I said, you know, we will all adapt and you try and make the best of the situation.
So let's go straight into the meat of the matter. How prepared is Nigeria for the future of work? I mean, this has ultimately disrupted the way things are going to be done henceforth. How do you think Nigeria is when it comes to the future of work?
So I think, you know, we're at the very start of that journey as a nation. I think also there's some investments that need to be made for us to be able to say effectively we will be, you know, efficient in this new way of working. And I think the first thing to call out also is around, you know, the infrastructure that's required for us to be able to actually facilitate virtual or remote work, you know, in private, public institutions, and you know, irrespective of where people find themselves, they're able to carry out their daily activities from a remote location through virtual means using technology, you know, to get this done. So I think from an infrastructure perspective, there's still a lot of work that we need to do there. There's a lot of work that needs to happen around providing power, you know, to be made available to even the nooks and crannies of Nigeria. I think also broadband access, which is internet access to remote location, to everywhere, you know, to everyone. It has to be accessible and it has to be robust enough to facilitate audio or video conversations, you know, wherever those type of facilities will be as well. So I think we do still have a few hoops to jump to catch up with other developed markets from a remote working perspective.
So I'm going to ask you 2 questions in one. How soon do we catch up? How soon do we catch up? How much longer does it take to catch up? And 2, what are the kinds of jobs that we're going to have now post COVID-19, you know, because of the immense job losses that has been experienced all over the world?
So I think for us, the journey has started. It's not optional anymore in terms of having the capability to work remotely. Anyone who has done anything constructively in the last 3 weeks has had to do it from some remote location, leveraging technology, to get this done. In terms of when we will, get to an advanced stage in this journey, I can't say for sure. That's dependent on so many things. Like I said, it's dependent on us having the right infrastructure in place. It's dependent on us making sure that the digital skills that are required for different parts of the people who need to leverage technology to do their day-to-day work also have to learn, because it's also now about reskilling and retooling, as well from that perspective. So I think it's still a fairly long journey for us in terms of putting the right infrastructure in place and making sure that the right skills are in place for people to use technology to be able to facilitate meetings and share documents and presentations from remote locations as well. So I think that's where we are. I think on the other hand, you've mentioned about job losses, which is a global thing. We're seeing that trend happening across the world. But certain industries will pick up post-COVID. I see a lot of activities happening in education. I think there'll be massive opportunities in terms of virtual learning, where we would see children or students being able to learn with the help of technology, from remote locations. I think also we're seeing also a lot of adoption of telemedicine as well. We're seeing a lot of companies in the healthcare space. We're seeing hospitals who are saying that because there's a lockdown and we can't get people to come into our facilities, can people potentially, dial in through some form of video conferencing, speak to physicians, as well. I also see an opportunity also in the e-commerce business. The e-commerce business will also bloom because people will continue to most potentially shy away from store experiences, and you see more people opting to buy things online, as well. So I would say that those three areas would potentially be areas where I would potentially see growth post-COVID.
All right, Ope, let's talk about, lastly, before we let you go, let's talk about security, online security. Just 3 days ago, I think an expert put it out that people who work at the bank from home remotely should be very careful, as they could be hackers, that will have access to files they're not supposed to have access to. So please, you could just tell us how careful we should be and the tips we should take to note while working from home, because of course our official files are open and we're using data from our houses to work.
Yeah. So, definitely, I think the risks are there in terms of working remotely. And I think most organizations are also beginning to realize that in the event when people had to work from their own facilities or their own offices, they had made provision to make sure that some level of security, cybersecurity, was in place to make sure that there was no loss of data and intruders would not come to the environment. But working remotely also requires us to have a security posture that allows us, one, to verify the identity of every individual that is able to log into the network environment from a remote location. One, you need to be able to first identify that individual and make sure that Ope is who he says he is. And there are different tools for us to be able to do that. There's something called multi-factor authentication, where you are able to have a second level of verification, either through a token or you get an SMS to your phone that allows you to put in another level of authentication to verify that you are who you say you are. And there are, so many other type of features that you can enable when people are working remotely, just to also make sure that there's no data loss or there's no data theft. in your environment, as well. So yes, we need to always, all organizations who have people working remotely at this time have to have these measures in place. Also because the guys that work in the dark world also are cognizant of the fact that people are working more remotely. They are on alert to also look for vulnerabilities to take advantage of.
Thank you very much for that tip. We've been speaking with Ope Olaniran. He's a tech expert with massive experience in the tech sector in different continents of the world. And we've been speaking about the readiness of Nigeria when it comes to the future of work, all thanks to COVID-19, who has brought it to our doorsteps. Thank you so much, Ope, for making it to the show today.
Thank you very much for having me as well.
All right, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be rounding off onto this business. Please don't go anywhere. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and that's how we come to the end of today's business. I believe it has been very informative, and you've received lots of insights from the analysis that has been given by our guests today. Now, before we go, I want to remind you that COVID-19 is real. Ensure you wash your hands with soap and soap under running water regularly. And if you don't have water and soap, use alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Until tomorrow, which is the weekend edition of today's business, my name is Mercy Frank. I'm saying stay safe.